So the day is the day, guys. Every Diary of a Wimpy Kid book ranked from worst to best. No, I do not care about the 16th book. I think it's obvious why. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Deep End. Oh, it sure is. This book is the pinnacle of terrible. This is probably the only book from the entire series that has nothing to say. I mean, this is like the 4th vacation book he made, and it shows. There's literally a part in the book where the RV was
down by the river!
And then they ride it like a surfboard again.
Down by the river!
And it turns and snaps into the bridge so people can get across because the bridge broke. Enough said. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Meltdown. Exactly how I felt after reading it. This is the first book where I felt like Jeff Kinney kind of lost every single concept about what made the book so special. Don't get me wrong, there are a few moments where it's fine and maybe some relatable ideas, but a lot of the stuff is just boring and tedious and just so forgettable. It feels like Kinney's trying to fill the 217 page slot where it really could have just been 170 pages or something, at least with this book. A great example is the snowball fight. I mean, it just goes on forever. Most of the time, we don't even see Greg. We just see these characters that A, we're never ever gonna see again, or B, haven't even seen before. But overall, I think it's objectively a really forgettable Wimpy Kid book, mainly because it just left no impact on me whatsoever. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Getaway. Yeah, this is another one where I'm kind of like, why did you think this could work? I mean, it's the Heffleys on a plane. Do you get it? I mean, I do like the world building involved, you know, with the sides of the resort and the island and stuff, and also that that whole spider bit was actually really funny, and yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Double Down is pretty mediocre. To be fair, there are things I like. I like the whole concept of Greg thinking that he's in this Truman Show reality. I like him trying to make a movie and then Rowley ending up a star and wearing the same exact outfit to a talk show. I like him playing the French horn and failing to do so. I like the whole Halloween subplot, which I feel like is Jeff Kinney's strength, which is always just the relatable kind of situational comedy. But this book overall feels like half a book, because I feel like one half is really good and really funny, but the other half is just much like the books you've seen so far on this list, very bland and very unoriginal. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Long Haul, the book. I don't know why I emphasized on that part, because it isn't like there's a movie or anything like that, but I am talking about the book, by the way. And the book is actually alright. I'll give it this. This is probably the only book that tried to spice things up a bit with, you know, the pig and the road trip and stuff like that, but in terms of the humor and the taste, this wasn't really for me. I mean, a flock of seagulls flying into a van because Greg left some cheese puffs on the floor, or Manny driving the van and talking better Spanish than I ever could, and he's what?
I'm only 3.
It's kind of like, this is fine, but this just doesn't seem like something I'd want to read anytime soon. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Hard Luck. This book is actually pretty average as well. Much better than The Long Haul, the book, but it's still kind of there. Even though I do like the story, it's surprisingly actually really great. Everything else is just kind of meh. The whole Easter subplot was a little too long. The whole thing with, you know, the magic 8-ball was a very clever idea, especially when it was actually a huge thing, but could have been way funnier, but honestly the book does kind of pay off due to everything tying into the middle school, which was honestly the best part of what made the book so great. But still, Hard Luck is pretty alright. Diary of a Wimpy Kid Old School is big shock, pretty fine. This is another book where I think half of it is great, but the other half just went on a little too long. And that half is of course the whole camping trip. I mean, I like the legend and the book that, Grandpa gave Greg involved, but the characters were so obnoxious, the entire idea was just kind of boring, but I do like that the book kind of does new things like the lemonade stand and such, and when Kenny again sticks with that sort of stuff, these books will never get old. But honestly, Old School works only when it's, drumroll please, Old School. That made no sense at all, but this is getting too long. Next book. Diary of a Wimpy Kid Third Wheel is pretty good. What else can I say? I feel like the best part of the book was easily the parts where he would talk about the stuff that happened before his birth, when he was born, his childhood, overall, but I feel like the whole Valentine's aspect is so out of place. It kind of just felt like a fan fiction that happened to be made by the creator of the books. Like, Greg would clearly tell the difference between a pimple and chickenpox. What are you, like 5? But yeah, this book is made of chocolate. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the Miley Cyrus song, Wrecking Ball, is the only book in a while that Jeff Kinney made that's actually really, really good. Sure, some stuff could have been cut out and are pretty uninteresting, but I do genuinely like most of it. Most notably the stuff with the house and the possibility of them moving away, because even though the ending was very over the top, and even though we obviously know they're not gonna move, because if that happened then Greg would be in high school already if change was something Jeff Kinney had in mind. But anyway, I do like how relatable and kind of how much it focuses on that aspect, even though we know that's never gonna happen. Are you guys insane? But yeah, good book. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Ugly Truth is surprisingly the most mature book of the series, in Jeff Kinney standards, that is. Honestly, from then on, every single book from this series is just great. Like, this book goes into heavy detail about growth and change, and I read this at a time where I was dealing with this sort of stuff and what it means to be a man while also taking advantage and feeling gifted about still being, a child. For 15 books, I'm sorry, I've been doing the math, and realistically from the 1st to the 15th book, shouldn't he be in 10th grade now? Is this kid secretly Caillou, like he just can't age cause he's that iconic? What's up with that?
Oh, yes, Daddy.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid Dog Days, the OG summer vacation book. Sure, the ending's a little weird, but I feel like Dog Days was a book that fully captured what summer truly is. Summer to me is always this way, where I have a plan to make it the best summer in the world, but it doesn't work because something random happens which ties into another thing and then another thing, and then it's overall still a pretty good summer, but you're kind of like, I wanted to do the other thing, you moron. Anyway, great book, #RIP Sweetie. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Last Straw is pretty great. The book easily has the best ending of the entire series. Easily. It shows a new chapter for Greg, even though we know later on he's pretty much the same human being. This book is pretty much a great recollection of what the movies are to me, where he starts off as this wimpy, stubborn, narcissistic loser, but later turns into still having those elements, arguably never even changing those elements, but not as much anymore, which made him a caring, even selfless person. And oh my god, that whole Shel Silverstein gag where Greg said that he looks like a pirate or a burglar, yeah, that was one of, and probably is one of the funniest things I've read in a book ever. I really can see it, look at him. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Greg Heffley's journal, aka the original. What can I even say about this book that hasn't been said, except it's a classic. This book is pretty much the accumulation of what middle school was, which was an awkward yet, no, not even a yet, just a very awkward time of our lives. And of course, who could forget that iconic cheese?
How did you come up with the idea for the cheese touch?
You know, I thought that when I was a kid, there used to be such a thing as cooties. And I've got my fingers crossed right now, so these guys can't give it to me. And, you know, the way that you didn't get cooties was by crossing your fingers. And I thought it would be funny to have like a nuclear cooties where, you know, it was just like if you got it, you were just an outcast in your school.
But yeah, fantastic book and a great first entry to kick off this awesome series. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Rodrick Rules is much like the movie, one of the best sequels ever made. I'll always remember Rodrick Rules as a story about the development of a sibling rivalry. The whole book was about this one single stake, an embarrassing secret Rodrick had about Greg, and Kinney makes the wise decision to not tell us about what it is right away to keep us right in our seats. It really shows just how secretive Greg is about it, to the point that he doesn't even want to write about it in his journal. Like, of all places to write about your feelings, why not write it in your diary, I mean journal, unless he really had to. Greg actually gets sympathetic for Rodrick, knowing full well Rodrick intended to hurt him for his mistake. In my opinion, the movie is even better, and it's still and will always be my favorite entry to the original trilogy. Due to, you know, some smart changes, you know, to the source material that actually improve on the story. And that, in my eyes, is incredibly impressive. But there's still one more book that's simply just the number one on my list. And my number one favorite Diary of a Wimpy Kid book is the Do-It-Yourself book, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you know I'm joking. Do it yourself. No, my number one pick is actually the Rowley Jefferson novels, the Awesome Friendly books. A great title, man. Wow. It sounds like the popular kid in preschool, doesn't it?
Hi, I'm the awesome friendly kid.
Okay, I gotta stop. My number one pick for the best Diary of a Wimpy Kid book is actually Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Cabin Fever. There is a reason why Kinney won a Best Author Children's Choice Award for Cabin Fever. There is a reason why Kinney considered adapting the book for Greg's first full-length animated venture. I mean, it could still happen, who knows? That's because Cabin Fever was just that good. This was the first book I got and read from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and from then on, I would read these books and I would buy them just as sort of comfort food. To me, Cabin Fever even transcends the nostalgia factor I get from the first 3 books. It's interesting because the book really explores Greg's potential for moral righteousness much more than the first 5 ever did. Examples of this are when Greg makes sure to bring a present down to the police station for charity, or when he expresses empathy towards his mom when the snow ruins a family photo album. The book also predicted quarantine, maybe. I don't even know at this point, because they kind of capture the vibe of quarantine so perfectly. Jeff Kinney just hit it out of the park with this one, especially after thinking that he couldn't genuinely top the first 5 books. Like, just good for him, and good for us getting easily the best Diary of a Wimpy Kid book ever made. So there you have it. Every Diary of a Wimpy Kid book ranked. The official version. Anyone says otherwise, you know, you see those other videos on YouTube, don't, no, don't you listen to a single word they're saying. I'm always right.